Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Something slightly different today. I'm going to react almost immediately to Game Week 2. Now that we still have the Liverpool Crystal Palace game and I'm actually recording this during the Spurs versus Chelsea game. But let me know down below in the comments if you like these kind of videos where I'm sort of immediately reacting. I'm going to go through my initial transfer plans and some of my initial thoughts ahead of Game Week 3. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do subscribe. 50% of you that watch these videos don't actually subscribe. So please scroll down, subscribe, like the video. But without further ado, let's jump to today's video. So as I said in the introduction, I am recording this during the Spurs-Chelsea game, so I don't know how Son, Kane, Kulusevski, James in my team get on. But currently, Game Week 2 is going pretty well. Not quite as well as Game Week 1 did for me, but I am, at the time of recording this, still at a slight green arrow from 311 to 203k. As I've said in previous videos, though, rank doesn't matter until about Game Week 12, 14. And to be honest, it doesn't actually matter until Game Week 38. But I'm not too stressed at the moment. I think most importantly for me, the team is set up very well. I don't see any major issues with my team. And the players that I've chosen, I've been pretty lucky with. And the 50-50 calls that I had, for example, the £5 million defender spot, I was choosing between maybe Trippier, Walker. We had a little look at Gabriel. Did look a little bit at Luca Dean and Cash, but I'm very happy with my Trippier choice. The goalkeeping spot, I'm still happy I went with Ramsdale. And a couple of the other spots, Martinelli over Saka has gone very well for me. So, as I said, I'm not particularly stressed about rank at the moment. I'm not too worried about how many points I'm picking up necessarily. I'm more focused on how does my team look, what is the structure like, and am I in a close position to how I want to be in future game weeks as well. For this specific game week, I'm currently sat on 57 points. Trippier and Cancelo pulling through as they did in game week 1 for me as well. As I said, Martinelli outscoring Saka once again is brilliant for me. Very unlucky for those of you that chose to pay a little bit more for Saka. In pre-season, Saka looked like the one to own. So Martinelli doing very well. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus 19-pointer is absolutely ridiculous and very unlucky for owners. I know a few people took a risk maybe starting the season with someone like Callum Wilson. So I think if you don't own Jesus, get him in as soon as possible. And then Haaland only picking up a single assist is probably the biggest disappointment in my team. So I still think he was the correct captaincy choice. If I could go back, I would captain Haaland again because I think without using outcome bias, it was probably the correct choice. He looked absolutely fantastic in the Community Shield and Game Week 1. It was the easiest fixture on paper. So I'm still glad I chose Haaland. And City did score 4 goals. It just so happened that Haaland only got the 1 assist. He was in a couple of brilliant positions. He only actually got 8 touches in Game Week 2. But those touches were all in very, very good positions. And there was one opportunity where Foden could have easily cut the ball back to Haaland and he would have had to tap him from a few yards out. So I feel like slightly unlucky to come away with only 1 assist. But generally speaking, I'm very happy with the way that Game Week 2 has gone thus far. What I really need, and you'll know this at the time of watching, I need Kane and Son to stay fairly quiet and Kulusevski. Ideally, I'd like a clean sheet from James, who looks like he's lining up in right centre-back for this game. And then I ideally need Diaz to outscore Robertson. If those few things happen, it might be an even better game week for me. On the bench, Andreas and Williams both picking up some points. Both would have been better choices ahead of Bailey. But realistically, I'd made the decision to start with Bailey because I didn't know if he was going to start or not. I'm still relatively happy with that decision. So 57 points at the time of recording. We might push above that, maybe to sort of 70, 75 points, depending on how my remaining 4 players get on. Let's now take a look at the way that the team's set up currently for Game Week 3, early on in the week, and then also look at some potential transfer plans and my updated watch list. So here is how we look going into Game Week 3. And because this isn't the team selection video and we've still got a week until the deadline for Game Week 3, I'm just going to show you the team and just talk very broadly about how happy I am with the team, different positions that we might potentially transfer out, and what I plan on doing with my 2 free transfers. So generally when I set up my team in pre-season, I kept banging on about it, but it was for a good reason, I hope, is I wanted to be as flexible as possible. The team that I set up, I wanted to be able to get to most players that I would want within 1 or 2 free transfers, and I wanted my general structure to be fairly flexible. So I set up in the 4-4-2 for that reason, and I left 1 million in the bank for that reason as well. So I'm currently going into Game Week 3 in what I think is a good formation with 1 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. So that is great news. I'm about as flexible as you can hope to be, but I'm not exactly sure how I want to use those 2 free transfers at the moment. And I'm not even sure if I do want to. Remember, again, if you're new to FPL, I don't have to use those 2 free transfers. But I do need to use 1 if I don't want to burn 1. So if I don't use any transfers at all, I'll just stay with 2 free transfers. I can use 1 free transfer and then roll over again 2 free transfers to Game Week 4. The way that I set my team up as well was basically I'm happy with 9 of my players. So I always set my team up thinking that 9 of these players, unless something goes horribly wrong, I can keep them arguably until sort of Game Week 8, Game Week 9 when I plan on playing my wildcard during that first international break. So apart from Trippier and Bailey, I don't have many plans on changing those 9 players for the time being. It's literally just those Trippier and Bailey spots, which I knew were potentially fairly short-term picks. Trippier has been outstanding. 7-pointer in Game Week 1, 7-pointer in Game Week 2, 14 points in total. He's been really good for me. And remember, when I chose Trippier, I said that you can actually rotate Trippier very well with Andreas Pereira, who has nice fixtures in Game Week 3 and Game Week 5 against Brentford and Brighton, I believe. Or you can rotate him with Williams, who has a decent fixture here against Everton, kept a clean sheet in Game Week 2, so that could be a decent option as well. So I don't have to sell Trippier this week, and I don't even have to sell him in Game Week 5 when he plays against Liverpool. I can just rotate him in and out for those games. And outside of that, in Game Week 4 and then 6, 7, 8, he actually has some pretty good fixtures. So I'm definitely not set on selling Trippier, but when you consider that most of us will be planning, and I will as well, be wildcarding between sort of Game Week 6 and Game Week 9, when 2 of the fixtures there are against Liverpool and City, that's quite a big sort of percentage of the fixtures that you're going to be holding him for. So I think there's justification to sell him. My issue is, who do I sell him for? And am I confident enough that they get more points than playing Trippier and rotating Andreas and Williams in for the fixtures where I don't want to play Trippier? So that's something to consider. Realistically, the position that I want to transfer out and the player that I want to change is Bailey. He didn't look particularly great in Game Week 1. He was then benched in Game Week 2 and only come on for a short cameo. I do genuinely believe he'll start Game Week 3. I think the only reason he was benched in Game Week 2 is because of the formation that Everton play. They play a 3-back formation, and I think Gerrard lined up with 2 strikers deliberately because that's better to counter against a 3-back formation. So Crystal Palace, I think they'll go back to playing Bailey, and I think Bailey will start, but we'll have to wait and see there. So I don't even necessarily think it's a terrible choice to keep Bailey, but long term, I don't want him anyway. I suppose my main issue with selling Bailey is, right, Bailey's 5 million, and I've got 1 million in the bank. The only players that I want, as we'll discuss in my watch list section next, around that sort of price, don't necessarily have the best fixtures in Game Week 3. There are a couple, but most of them, specifically sort of the lead players, whether that be like a Rodrigo or an Aronson or a Harrison, 3 really good options there. They've got Chelsea in Game Week 3, so that's really probably a transfer I'd want to make from Game Week 4 onwards. So I guess I'm in a bit of a tricky position here where I'm fairly happy with the team, and the 2 players that I might want to take out in Trippier and Bailey, I don't necessarily need to take out this week. Andreas and Williams could both be upgraded. I could go Andreas to a 5.5. I could go Williams to a 5. But I think Andreas and Williams, in their own right, have both already demonstrated that they're really good value. And I don't necessarily think I want to put more money onto my bench. So all of that together, basically, I'm very happy with the team moving forward. I think I can't see myself needing to make many changes over the coming weeks. Realistically, it's going to be either Trippier or Bailey or both that will be taken out. I could even try and switch. It would take 3 transfers, but I could take money out of Trippier, out of Bailey, so Trippier down to Patterson, Bailey down to a cheaper mid, and then put a bit of money in my striker. Take out Archer and bring in like a Welbeck or an Mbermo or Tony if I could get there. So there are a few options there, but generally happy with the team. Let's now move on to the watch list section where I'm going to go through the players that I'm currently looking at potentially transferring in ahead of Game Week 3. I know Andreas Pereira picked up a knock in Game Week 2 and he's currently flagged on the FPL website as 75% chance of playing. So I know there's a small chance that Andreas won't be fit. We'll address that later in the week. And if that is the case, potentially that changes the transfers that we make. But we'll have to wait and see on that. I don't think it looked too serious. And we do have Nico Williams on the bench who could come in if we want to start one of our bench players. So in this section, we did this a little bit last year. What I'm going to go through is my watch list. Now, it's worth noting this isn't a general watch list, i.e. there are some players like Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli who, if you don't own them, I would argue they should be top of your watch list, but this is my watch list. So players that I don't currently own, but for different reasons, I may be looking to bring in either now or in the near future. Because this is my watch list, I've not put players on here just that aren't attainable. For example, I think Darwin is a fantastic option to bring in, but it's going to require me taking out Diaz and restructuring my team, probably maybe taking out Jesus as well. So it just doesn't make sense for my team. And for similar reasons, yes, I would love Son and Kane ahead of Wolves at home, and they're a really nice fixture, Forest in Game Week 4. But realistically, I'm not going to sell Haaland, I'm not going to sell Salah unless they get injured. So once again, they're not on my watch list for that reason. So these players are on the watch list because they're affordable in 1, 2 or 3 transfers, and they might make their way into my team. Starting with the defenders, it really does depend if I take out Trippier. It depends if I take out Bailey and want to upgrade him, or it depends if I want to upgrade Nico Williams. So it depends what I use that transfer on. But as the sort of most expensive player in there, we've got Perisic. Now, Perisic hasn't started in Game Week 2 again, so I'm almost definitely not going to bring Perisic in ahead of Game Week 3 because Sessegnon continues to start. You'll know at the time of watching this how good Sessegnon is in Game Week 2. Perhaps Perisic comes off the bench and scores, but he's still on my radar because I think when he does start, he is going to be absolute gold. I just don't know if he's going to be soon enough because if he starts getting into the starting 11 when the midweek games kick in, well, then that's another reason to potentially stay away from the Spurs wing back. So for the time being, I'm staying away from Doherty, Perisic, Sessegnon, Emerson Royale, because I don't know who's nailed. But I've put Perisic on there because when he is getting into the starting 11, he is one I'm considering. I've got Cucurella there because he started in game week 2, and there is a quote from Tuchel before the game started, which basically says that Cucurella is ahead of Ben Chilwell in his fitness. So Cucurella looks at the moment like first choice left wing back just due to his fitness. And when he isn't and Chilwell comes back, I still think Cucurella will get into that team as sort of the left centre back of a back three. So Cucurella looks, by all accounts, like a decent option moving forward, but maybe similarly to Perisic, just due to the rotation, maybe not the best option. So if I do want to go for a defender from a top team, maybe it is Kyle Walker. I said before the season started, and even in game week 1, he's going to be a 6-point merchant, and he has got 6 points, 6 points. So he's going to tick along nicely for you, get a few clean sheets. That will probably continue for the foreseeable future, but he's not a particularly exciting pick. You don't get many bonus points with Walker, and you don't get many attacking returns either. So for different reasons, I think Cucurella, Perisic, and Walker are great options, but maybe not the most exciting picks, and maybe there is better use of my transfers elsewhere. I've then got 3 £4.5 million defenders there. I've got Dunk of Brighton, I've got me, and I've got Henry. This could be any of the Brentford backline, and arguably any of the Brighton backline that are starting as well. The reason for having these teams on there is Brighton and Brentford are top of the fixture ticker up until the game week 8, game week 9 wildcard that we're looking to play for fixtures. So from a defensive perspective, by all accounts, Brighton and Brentford, who had really good underlying data last year, look like two defences that might be worth targeting. They've both looked good in the early parts of the season. Brentford obviously looks incredible against Manchester United, but I think any team would probably look good against Man United at the moment. That isn't to take credit away from Brentford, but maybe not the hardest test at the moment. But regardless, I am very, very tempted to downgrade Trippier to Dunk, me, Henry, someone from Brighton, someone from Brentford. That gives me an extra 0.5 to play with for any other transfers. And the thing that I love about getting a Brighton or Brentford defender in is, unlike Trippier, I can play them pretty much every single week up until the game week 8, game week 9 wildcard that I plan on playing. So that's definitely an option there. Again, maybe doesn't make sense. When I can play Trippier in some of the weeks and rotate with Andreas or rotate with Williams, maybe it doesn't make sense to take Trippier out. But if I do, I think at the moment, the most likely transfer is a Brighton defender or a Brentford defender. That being said, like I said, I think the most sensible use of my transfer this week is probably to take Bailey out. I love the look of Foden and Gundogan. Both of them, for different reasons, look very good. Yes, Foden was subbed at half-time, and Pep didn't look too happy with the few chances that Foden had to pass when he shot. But I still think Foden will start the majority of the games. And Gundogan has been officially handed the club captaincy. Looks absolutely brilliant. He looks back to himself that we saw from a couple of seasons ago. So Foden and Gundogan, someone to keep my eye on, but I would have to take at least 2, potentially 3 transfers to get them into my team, just due to the sort of structure that I've got set up. So probably for now, Foden and Gundogan are maybe transfers in a few game weeks rather than for this specific week. So that basically brings me to 4 potential options that could be coming in for Leon Bailey. We've got Harrison and Aronson of Leeds. Yes, I would quite like Rodrigo, but due to his price rise, I can't get there in one transfer. So at the moment, I'm looking at maybe Harrison or Aronson. As I said, the issue with them is that they've got Chelsea in game week 3, so it probably doesn't make a massive amount of sense to go for a Leeds player in game week 3 when Bailey's arguably got a better fixture, and then I can just bring them in for game week 4. So that is something to think about. But again, I don't really want to burn a transfer. So maybe I just make the transfer this week, and I guess I could bench them and just play Andreas or Williams. Something to consider there. I do really like the look of Leeds fixtures moving forward. I've got KDH on there. Got Southampton at home in game week 3. Leicester have, by all accounts, looked very bad at the back. They've looked very poor early on. However, they have scored a few goals going forward. I think, obviously, 2 goals in game week 1, 2 goals in game week 2. They're still scoring goals moving forward. KDH is playing a slightly more advanced role to what we saw last season. So I do think that KDH could be a decent option. He's only 5 million, so it's not a massive upgrade on Bailey there. So decent option, but not particularly exciting. Not one that I necessarily want to make. Which basically brings us to, at the moment, probably, which sounds strange, the most likely transfer if I were to bring someone in for Bailey at the moment, and that is an Everton midfielder. The reason for that is Nottingham Forest, yes, they kept a clean sheet in game week 2, but I believe they conceded 2.89 expected goals against West Ham. They conceded quite, I think might even been higher than that against Newcastle. So they are conceding a buttload of chances, like very high XG from Newcastle and West Ham. And these are 2 decent attacking outfits, but Nottingham Forest look like a team which we might be targeting later in the season. They've looked decent from an attacking perspective, but they haven't really been great from a defensive perspective, at least when we look at expected data. Gordon's got a great fixture there, or Gray. Could be any of the Everton midfielders. Gordon or Gray got a great fixture in game week 3. And moving forward, they've actually got decent fixtures right up until, again, that game week 8 or game week 9 wildcard. So I'm looking at Gordon and Gray now. Let me know down below if you think I'm crazy. I know Everton don't look fantastic going forward from an attacking perspective, but Gordon and Gray at 5.5, you could potentially do worse than those 2 there. Gordon's probably just about the one at the top of my list, just probably because his expected minutes is slightly higher than Gray. And then lastly, if I do want to make 2 or 3 transfers to switch some of the funds to the attack and go into a sort of like a 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3 formation, Tony and Mbermo look like really good options in their own right. Of course, I would prefer Tony, but I think Tony would require 0 price rises and at least 3 transfers. Whereas Mbermo, I believe I can get there in 2 transfers potentially. Again, maybe it will require 3. We'll have a look at that in the next section. But if I do want to make that switch, I'm looking at the Brentford forwards. Such great fixtures for Brentford now from game week 3 to about game week 9. And again, they've looked very good from an attacking perspective, scored 6 goals in the first 2 game weeks. So these are the players that I'm currently considering. It does largely depend on who I want to take out, how many transfers I want to make, and how much that leaves me in the bank. At the moment, Bailey's the one I want to take out. Just due to the fixtures, I'm looking at maybe Gordon, maybe Gray, or maybe just the Leeds midfielder, and I just suck up the fact that they've not got the best fixture in game week 3. Let's now take a look at the Fantasy Football Hub website and look at planning ahead to future weeks and where I might be using those transfers and how that will set my team up ahead of game week 3. So as I'm recording this, Mark Cucurella has just got an assist. Koulibaly has just scored. So maybe Koulibaly's an option. Listen, I promise I did record that watch list section before Cucurella got the assist. But that does drive home the point that potentially Cucurella could be the one moving forward. Trippier to Cucurella. We'll do that right now. So I'm using the new My Team feature, by the way, over at Fantasy Football Hub. If you do want to get 50% off from Fantasy Football Hub at the moment, use the first link in the description. You can get all of the features pretty much on this site for as little as £1.50 a month if you use my link in the description. So do go and check that out. Like I said, I don't necessarily want to lose Trippier, but I just think with Cucurella, you could pretty much start him every week. I suppose the issue is that Trippier has good, decent attacking potential. He's good for bonus points as well. And you can rotate him in with, like I said, Andreas and Williams. But if I do make something like that, whether it be Cucurella, this is the first option, whether it be Cucurella, whether it be Walker, whether it be potentially even if Chilwell looks like he's going to start, or Diaz I can get up to. Because remember, I've got 1 million in the bank. So I have a few options there. That would give me double Chelsea defence against Leeds, which looks like a fairly good setup for game week 3 at least. If we look at their fixtures for Chelsea, they've got Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Fulham. And then I'd probably wildcard between game week 8 and 9. So it's only that Liverpool fixture in game week 8, which I wouldn't really want to start double Chelsea defence for. So that's something to consider. But again, I'm not sure if I'm willing enough to take that risk. I guess it depends how the rest of the game goes today for game week 3. And also any sort of post comments we get. How does Chilwell look when he comes off the bench? Do we get any comments that suggest that Cucurella can fill in at centre back? So there's a few things to think about. That's the first option, right? Is sort of Cucurella in for Trippier or someone like that in for Trippier. If we bring Trippier back, the other option is, again, I don't take him out because he's got decent fixtures. Again, if we look at their fixtures, you don't want to play him in 3 and 5. But outside of that, if you can rotate Pereira or Williams in, you've got game week 4 against Wolves, then Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth. And then if I don't wildcard in 9, Fulham. So some really good fixtures come up for Trippier. And Newcastle do look really good, both going forward and defensively. And Trippier is on pretty much all free kicks and corners for Newcastle too. So that's the first option there. The other option I've got is that, again, I bench Trippier this week. Bring in either Andreas or Williams. It can be either or. It doesn't really matter. Let's say Williams just in case Andreas is out. And I instead do use the funds to take out Bailey. If I do that, again, if I bring in someone like, let's say Aronson, because it's someone that I've wanted for a while. If I bring in Aronson, I can do that. And then again, I can bench Aronson. So it seems strange to use a transfer to bench someone. But again, I've got 2 free transfers. So I can just play Nico Williams and Andreas Pereira. Yes, they're cheap, but they've both shown decent attacking potential. And again, whilst Forest didn't look fantastic in game week 2, they did keep a clean sheet. And it's definitely a possibility there. So Nico Williams and Andreas coming in, Aronson dropping to the bench, Trippier dropping to the bench as well. And then in game week 4, I bring Aronson in, I bring Trippier in, and I've got a decent starting 11 there. Let me just skip ahead to game week 4 to show you how that would look. So Trippier would come back in, Aronson would come back in, and that would give me a game week rating of 92%. So I don't mind that as an option. The final option is rather than Aronson coming in, if I just take out Andreas and bring in Aronson, again, some kind of Everton player. So let's bring in, say it's Gordon as the option. It doesn't have to be Gordon. It could be Gray if you prefer Gray. Great next 3 fixtures, Nottingham Forest, Brentford and Leeds. Again, 6 and 7 aren't great, but in game week 6, you could even potentially go for Gordon now up until game week 6. And then in game week 6, bring in Aronson, bring in Harrison, Rodrigo, whoever you want from Leeds, because the Leeds fixtures actually continue to be pretty good for 6 and 7 too. So you have a few different options there. Like I said, realistically, it is the Trippier spot and the Bailey spot. I don't want to touch any of the other players. I like my triple Liverpool. I like Martinelli, Jesus, Haaland, Cancelo, James, and I like Ramsdale too. So unless we get any injuries injuries in the Monday Night Football or during the Chelsea-Tottenham game for the rest of it, or unless something crops up midweek, it's going to be those two positions. I don't feel forced to use my money in the bank, and I definitely don't feel forced to use both transfers. So it might be that I only use 0.5 and I only use one transfer, which again, going forward to Game Week 4 then, would give me 2 free transfers and 0.5 in the bank. But we're looking pretty good for Game Week 4. Let me know down below what your current dilemmas are. Let me know if you've enjoyed this kind of video as well, like these sort of early thoughts videos. It's going to be a lot messier than my normal videos. My thoughts are normally sort of collated by the end of the week, and I'm very organized. This might feel a little bit messy, but let me know what you think of it. If you guys do enjoy, drop a like. If this video gets enough likes, then maybe I'll do these sort of videos in the future on a sort of Sunday night or on a Monday morning. Do let me know though. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 3 sort of early thoughts, transfer plans video for this week. Like I said, let me know down below what your dilemmas are and what you're currently looking like going into Game Week 3. And let me know how many points you're currently on as you're watching this video. As I said at the start, 50% of the people that watch these videos don't subscribe. So if you could please just take a few seconds to go down, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. There's at least 3 or 4 pieces of weekly content every week, including what is my favorite one, which is the deadline stream. So if you do want support throughout the season and you want to see how my team is going, please do subscribe. But until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.